And welcome back to Prop by the Bar, our 13th episode and first for 2022.
Correction, Mike. Season 3, episode 1. We're going in long with I'll put us up against Vikings on
Vikings,
Netflix. Sensational.
Haven't received a call from Netflix.
No, Netflix hasn't quite got in touch just yet.
Well, anyway, thanks for tuning back in and thanks for the support as always. It's been quite overwhelming, so thanks again. Now,
it's been 3 months
since
we sat down and had a chat about this sort of stuff.
Kind of missed you.
Oh, I'm flabbergasted.
I said kind of.
I said kind of, yeah. Well, you know, we had January. That was just Omicron. I personally, I'm just saying the whole year started 1st of February. It's just right off January. But Christmas was good. Had a good break. Family, you?
Yeah, same. Yeah, same. No, I didn't get away. Stayed local, but just needed to recharge the batteries after a really, really big year. So
same,
it was nice just to shut off a little bit.
I think a lot of people said that they just clawed up to Christmas and just got their fingernails and then had a bit of a break.
Yep.
And then we all thought we were back to work and we got the old Omicron scare, but I think that's fairly well washed over.
Well, we hope so. We're just for currency, we're the 21st of Feb, and we're hoping that this Friday that there's an announcement or a mandate that the mask can come off in the offices, which I think is what the CBD desperately needs.
We need that like you wouldn't believe how much we need that. It's just been so hard for these businesses. I'm being in my job as a valuer, we see both sides of the spectrum. We see the ups and the downs. Yep. We're called in to do mortgagee assessment valuations when things go bad for some of these people, and unfortunately, we've seen a couple of those for the first time in a couple of years over the last couple of months, and the amount of cafes that have shut down and things like that. See, my theory is that we got all that job seeker payments and all that sort of money a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, but we're only feeling the real pinch right now.
Well, I think what's happened with the Omicron and shortage of staff too is the other thing. Like I know there's venues in this street that are ready to go, but they can't staff them, so they haven't actually. But when you look at the government agencies, and I think government really need to stand up and take control of the situation.
There needs to be leadership. We need clear leadership. It has to come.
When you localise it in terms of the government agencies here, you've got TAC, WorkSafe, NDIA, then you've got the council that will follow suit from a state government decision. You've also got Bar and Water and Deakin. When you consider even just that short list of
Those are the companies or authorities that need to show leadership to us. They survive off taxpayer dollar, and there won't be too much of it if they keep going much longer. There's
probably about 6,000 or 7,000 workers within those handful of companies, and they're not frequent the CBD. They're not shopping. They're not buying their coffee. They're not buying their lunch. Yeah. They say the average spend per person per day is about $20.
Yeah,
and the only ones that are really suffering out of all of that, the local cafes, retailers, and hospitality venues.
And that will filter down to other markets. So I mean, these people own houses. They're buying and spending money in other retail and other sectors of the market. So you can't starve them for too much longer. To be honest, I think they've had enough. And I just from talking to them and knowing them, it's not good to look into someone's eyes who doesn't know where the next dollar's coming from tomorrow to pay for his wages. So we've got to show some leadership, guys. I don't know how else we say it, Mike. We've been pretty strong on that.
Yep. Well, we hope mask mandate, Friday, off, back in the office. So hopefully that's the end of it. Now,
50 planes. Actually, before we finish that, there was 50 planes arrived today with overseas immigrants. So hopefully there's a few chefs amongst all that.
Yeah, chefs and waiters. Righto. Now, another thing that we've seen come across is the Victorian state government are set to impose an $800 million a year, mind you, property development levy to fund social housing.
Look,
can I just quantify what that is? So from the 1st of July 2024, new Victorian developments of 3 or more dwellings and lot subdivisions of 3 or more must contribute 1.75% of the market value to a social housing fund.
Look, this is the state government again, and it's really disconnected because it's not consulting, obviously, to get this advice. If you go and add 1.7% tax to the developer, he's only going to pass that on to the purchaser. And who is the purchaser of units, Mike? It's the people who can't afford the bigger houses. It's the first home buyers. Yeah. It's the unit stock in Geelong and around the country is the affordable housing market. And they have just said they're going to add 1.75% price increase to the most vulnerable part of the marketplace.
Well, based on a median Melbourne house price of 1.1, it's just shy of an extra $20,000.
Yeah, and for that's, and they've got to come up with that deposit and all the rest of it. It just makes it so much harder. If you have a look at the windfall tax, which is the other one they released, that does the same thing by increasing development costs of developers. Again, they're just passing on the cost of blocks, the cost of housing, and a lot of our first home buyers go into new builds. And now it will be out of reach for a lot of them because they're saying that windfall tax is going to increase land lots by about $40,000 per lot. If that was the Property Council of Australia.
Those that are sitting on farmland,
yeah,
that's being or going to be rezoned,
they're up for a windfall tax. Up to 50% of the increase in the value of the land as the windfall will be the windfall gain, and that's what they're taxed.
So these type of mechanisms, it's like with the first home buyers, they sort of gave it with one hand
and take back with the other.
Because all it does is artificially increase pricing. So
and that's what they're doing. And unfortunately, what they're looking at this all wrong. You don't create affordable housing by taxation. You create affordable housing by providing more supply to the market, and you do that by incentivising development and incentivising growth. Right? You don't do that by taxation. This is the wrong way of going about creating affordable housing. Now, I can talk to this with my hat on. I'm the chair of Lazarus Community House, a homeless drop-in centre. That's what I do with my time as a philanthropically, and I find it at the moment over COVID, over this last 18 months, we've gone from feeding 20 to 30 people a day for lunch to feeding 60 people a day for lunch and above. We don't get any funding from the state government, and it's been really hard to get any grants or anything. Most of the grants and the money we've had into Lazarus has been from local communities, groups such as Geelong Connected Communities and Anthony Costa Foundation and all that sort of stuff. Geelong Community Foundation. They're the ones. The Geelong community have got around and looked after the homeless people. These sort of taxations don't help.
Yeah. No, totally agree. If we can just bring into some more localised data or subjects, we've got the height decision.
Yeah.
When are we expecting that? We've spoken about it on a few episodes.
I think the minister's had it on his desk since about September. Apparently he went away for holidays. Might have had a nice ski trip. Hopefully he's back by now and he might be able to make a decision on what is already before him. And now it doesn't matter what the decision is. The cat's out of the bag. We've got the panel has given its submission or recommendations. It's very unusual that we're not hearing that done so quickly or passed through.
You don't think the decision matters?
It does matter, but it's the decision will be the decision now. And we need to get on with that decision because while we wait for the decision, we're stalled. And I know, and you know, there's probably at least 5 or 6 large high-scale developments that will come out of the ground as soon as this is approved in its current form. Yeah,
there's a lot of people that are just sitting on the sidelines waiting to happen before they jump back into this Geelong market. They are, yeah. So, supply demand.
Yeah, it's been interesting because it's been such an interesting time. We said in other episodes about what's happening in the marketplace, but the supply and demand drives price. We saw the peak of demand in August last year. All the statistics show that was the peak. And since then, it's dropped back and it's dropped back and it's dropped back. And now supply and demand is starting to more balance out. And we're now experiencing a more balanced market across the board, which I think is a healthy place to be. As a valuer, I'm a skeptic. If we keep jumping too fast, we crash eventually. But right now, we're going back into a balanced market.
Yeah, it's going to it feels like it's going to be a more normalised market.
Definitely.
And, you know, that supply demand or the panic that was in the market last year has started to, dissipate
I don't think...
Still a very active market.
Yeah, and homeowners shouldn't worry. They've had 26.4% growth last year on average across Geelong. That's phenomenal. That's better than the share market, you financial brokers. Yep. It's always a competition between us and them, and we win this year.
The RBA... CBA's leading economist, Gareth, another Gareth Aird.
Good name.
Well, he's predicting the RBA rate to increase to 1% by the end of 2022. So that's 10 months away. They generally won't do one in December.
For context, we're at 0.25% now, so that's three-quarters of a percentage rise.
So in 9 months, 0.75%. I'm not convinced.
I'm not.
Is it?
No, because the head of the RBA came out and said they're not talking about doing a rate rise till November, did they? So,
well, anyway,
that's who you believe.
I can't really.
Do Do you believe economists anymore?
Well, not after, they were telling us 30%
Decrease
over COVID.
That didn't play out so well.
Went the other end, so maybe we just shelve that conversation a bit to the next one.
Well, there's so many statistics that say that this market is going back to a normalised market, and there's good reason for that.
Yeah.
It's not just the rate rises that affects purchases. It's actually the hurdles of getting lending that have changed. APRA has brought in different hurdles that banks are looking for more cash flow and things like that to make that lend. So that's already kicked in, and we're already seeing APRA
equity
make
used to be the key driver for lending.
Now it's cash flow.
Yeah,
and that's a big change for a lot of people. An example of that is your farmer. Your typical farmer sitting out there on a farm, and he's got a 5-year plan. He gets one good year out of 5. So a typical farmer's cash flow is really poor, but their equity they're sitting on is usually really, really high. So lending on that sort of basis to those sort of individuals, even though that's a very safe lend because there's so much underlying asset in the lend, that the banks are finding it hard because there's no cash flow to associate with it. So it's a difficult time, I guess, for some bankers, but there's still quite a lot of lending going on. A lot of the banks are still very active. I think the other thing about it is that we've had, we're opening up now, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people have taken the opportunity to get their house on the market that previously they couldn't. They couldn't get opens and things like that. So
I think people got comfort when it's just normal. You know what I mean? Yeah. Am I going to go to? There was a fair bit of. Am I going to go to an auction and halfway through we go to another lockdown and whatnot? So I think there'll be a lot more confidence, a little bit more stock on the market, and I think we keep
the stock
referring to a
normalised. I got a statistics I read out that in October to November, the number of increased listings around Victoria went up by 35%. And then from November to December went up another 11.3% on top of that, which says that. So it shows you how much extra listings are in the market, which is increasing supply. Yep. That demand curve hasn't really changed in terms of demand, but there's more supply, so therefore the market becomes more balanced as well. So back to where we started there.
And the most highly engaged suburbs?
Herne Hill.
Per listing?
And I've said this for years, how good Herne Hill is for a purchase. Love it. Herne Hill's medium average sale price is $700,000, right?
Yeah.
And your average medium house price in Geelong and Newtown is about $850,000, $900,000. So very affordable when you consider Herne Hill sitting next to Manifold Heights and Newtown, and has got bay views from some of those locations up there. It's a great spot and big blocks too.
Some of the suburbs, might just name the top 5. So this is the amount of people engaged per listing.
Yeah.
So 118 per every Herne Hill listing.
So that's how many clicks when it's on the advertise, how many people are clicking through to have a look at it. Yeah.
91 for Anglesea, followed by Geelong West at 79, North Geelong at 78, and Hamlin Heights at 75.
Yeah.
And that's before your sort of blue chips of your
and then you notice it drops right back to your 60s and 50s, doesn't it? So Herne Hill at 118 is a big number. Shows there's a lot of interest. And I think it shows you that there's a lot of interest to come into the inner established areas of Geelong.
So from an outsider looking in, would you be saying there's a whole lot of growth to happen in Herne Hill?
Oh, yeah. I reckon we'll see Herne Hill, and I'll put a prediction out there, put it on the record. I reckon we'll see Herne Hill will be one of the, or if not the fastest growing suburb in Geelong over the next 12 months.
And quite.
It will. And the good thing is I live across the other side of the road, so a little bit of a vested interest in that.
Just before we wrap up this segment, why don't we just touch on commercial?
Yeah, well, you've got a ripper going on down in Brom Street. Yep. Want to tell us about that? Right opposite the convention centre development, isn't it? 16 to 18 Brom?
10 to 18.
10 to 18 Brom, sorry.
Yeah, so it's on 2 titles, development site, 822 square metres. It's going to be one of the real testers of the developers.
It's the old Elders building, isn't it?
Yeah, it is at the old Elders site.
It's got a big warehouse at the back of it.
So we've got the new council civic offices in behind, the new convention centre half a block to the north.
How much land is it sitting on?
1822.
We've had the sale of Jerringham Street here, that next to the council building. I think that was equated to nearly 8,000 a square metre.
So that was with plans and permit, right?
With plans and permits.
Yep.
And then we've had a sale more recently up the top of the hill in Myers Street, also with plans and permits at 4,000 a square metre. Big difference. And similar size blocks to yours. And then there's another sale in Brom Street down that side at 8,000 square metre. But it was only a small 400 square metre site with no plans and permits.
So I won't comment on price. We're going to EOY. Where do you see value? Let's test you for next episode.
I think, with this one, you have to play into it, don't you, that the convention centre's across the road.
Yep.
and you've got that future.
You've got train station
you buy.
Deakin,
It's got
Westfield.
you say it's got plans and permits or not?
No plans.
I'm going to put a circa around 7 a square metre.
7.
And I'm a conservative valuer. You've probably listed it at 13 or something.
Don't be silly. No one's going to listen. Anyway, look, what I've just done to see, like you said, the year might as well started it in February. Generally, it's the case commercially anyway.
Yeah.
Start to see a little bit more stock come on than probably the previous.
There's a couple
3 or
of good
4 months.
There's a couple of good
stock coming on.
There's some good properties down there to give us an idea of what's going to happen with the industrial stuff, because the industrial market's the fastest growing commercial market in Geelong over the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
It's just gone out of control. You're talking 3,500 a square metre for an industrial tilt slab shed now.
Yeah.
It's more than you pay for a house, and you just get the square walls. But you go down to Breakwater, South Geelong. I think there's 2 agents. Tim Darcy's got a really good one on the market down there, with a big block of land and a good quality shed on it. And then there's a block of land in near Gravel Pitch Road that Maxwell Collins have got on the market at the moment too. So both of those are really going to show us where the industrial land rate
people
sits.
are really hungry for industrial land at the moment.
Yeah, and there's not that much tilt slabs around either, so there's not much new development of industrial. So both these sites lend themselves to some sort of development there. So we've seen the Metricon development on Fine Street, where that Metricon has just gone into there. That's probably the most recent good industrial development. That was getting really good numbers too in their sale prices as well. So it's the industrial market's still going pretty good.
We might leave it there, Gareth. We might go and...
I could talk all day, mate.
We all know that. But anyway, let's get on to meet our guests. But if you do want to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified when new episodes come up. But let's get on to our guests. And welcome back. Our first guest for the year is Senior Principal Town Planner, Simon Loader from TRACT. Simon actually sits on the Geelong chapter of the Property Council of Australia and on the Strategy Committee of the Committee for Geelong. So we're in esteemed hands here, very knowledgeable. If you want to know what's happening in Geelong, what's coming up, Simon's your man. And always on the other end of the phone when we need to know something, generally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, thanks for joining us on Propt.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Good to be with you too, guys.
Oh, well, you'll see if you survive it first.
We'll see. We'll see.
So the best thing, what we all want to do on the program is you get involved and understand all the growth of where Geelong's going to. So you're looking forward, where we're going to be in 5 and 10 and 20 years and sometimes longer. So tell us, what's Geelong going to look like?
Well, I think that's the thing that's up for debate at the moment, isn't it? Really, where
that's an easy question first up.
Yeah, look, it's the opinion of many that we're going to be a pretty significantly different city in 20, 30 years' time, and I think the role for us as planners is to look that far ahead and not think short term but long term, and what are the structural changes we need to make to ensure that growth is sustainable, but ultimately really protect the things that the three of us and everyone in Geelong loves, which is the character ultimately.
It is, yeah. But we do know a bit more facts that we can dive down a bit deeper. We've got the Northern Western Growth Corridor, which is going to accommodate an extra 110,000 people.
Correct. Yep.
What's that take our population? I think we just ticked over 274,000.
Yeah,
didn't we? So is that coming along? Where's that
at? It's slowly eking along. The council is certainly working tirelessly away on that, but the first PSPs are slated for 2024, 2025.
Which PSP will it be, the Northern or the Western?
So they're running one in each of the growth areas at the moment. So they're trying to create 2 different growth fronts, west and north, alongside obviously Armstrong Creek. But 2024, 2025 is when those first 2 PSPs are due to come out. And then obviously, maybe 6 to 12 months after that, we start to see development.
And for our guests, we apologise. As a planners and valuers, we tend to throw around a lot of acronyms, but PSP is a precinct structure plan.
Of course.
The Northern Growth Corridor for our viewers is located in Lovely Banks. So we're talking on the west side of Belayan Road and running up there, and the west.
We're talking about 60,000.
Yeah.
And the Western Growth Corridor pretty well sits from Bellpost Hill all the way down through to the river now, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it goes all the way down. Through Stonehaven and just this side of Stonehaven really, and
short of Stonehaven. Correct.
Yeah. And there's what's going to happen with the quarry in the middle?
Well, long term, the plan is for that to be a lake, ultimately. Now, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge, so to speak.
Yeah,
but
a lot of water to fill that too.
But that's certainly the long-term view of that framework plan, is for that to be filled with water and it become a recreational space for the heart of that community longer term. So,
when do you reckon we'll see the first houses in those corridors?
if I was a betting man, I'd be saying sometime in 2026.
Yep.
We'd like
That's pretty
for it to be,
quick. That's pretty quick.
Yeah, look, I would like to think that as an industry we can accelerate the growth through those corridors. I think the concern from the development industry is that we're sort of leaving that a little bit too late and we're starting to run out of supply.
How many years growth is that believed to be?
Well, it's thought that that'll service for about 30 years.
And population of Armstrong Creek?
110,000 people.
Well, population of Armstrong Creek, when it's fully developed, is planned to be 60,000.
And how long will that take?
So I think the first sort of dirt was turned out there in about 2013, thereabouts, and we're, nearly 10 years on?
Yeah.
Probably about halfway through.
So the way that Geelong is growing, do we think 30 years has probably been a bit too generous?
Look, I think that we don't know what's going to happen in 30 years' time. Is Geelong going to continue to see the kind of growth it's seen in the last, say, 5 years?
Last 2 years.
Last 2 years, we've sort of seen somewhere around 3% growth, sometimes a little bit north of that. You can't always think that you're going to see that kind of growth on the
What's
term.
your opinion when you read the statistics and the government stuff when they all throw out numbers like 1.8% growth predicted for Geelong, when you and I both sit here and know that growth's been at 3.5% and higher for the last 5 years straight?
Yeah, look, it's a little bit frustrating, obviously. I think one of the challenges with all growth areas, whether it be in Geelong or Metro Melbourne, is the delivery of infrastructure. And if your state government is assuming almost 1% growth less than what you're really planning for or expecting, that simply means that infrastructure is going to take longer to deliver. And that's a real problem for these growing communities.
Yeah. And we've got other areas other than the ones we've mentioned. So we've mentioned northern growth area, the western growth area. We've got Armstrong's Creek we talked about. There's also that stuff going on down at Leopold with Ash Road developments, all that through there. You a bit over that stuff?
Yeah, so TRACT are involved in the Eastern Ash project, which is sort of one half of that growth area. The other part is the Molars Lane development. So really that is the final zoned land in Leopold.
So it's not going to go back to the old bay? Not going to go down to the bay?
No, the current plan is that it would stay. Well, there's a view that that area should be retained as open rural landscape with views to the bay. That's certainly the policy that's in place at the moment.
Yeah, don't get that when they've just approved a caravan park in front of it.
Yeah, caravan parks versus genuine residential communities are viewed a little bit differently in the planning sphere. But you're right, there's certainly development happening down on that foreshore, and hopefully that opens up opportunities for access to the bay.
So tell us a bit about the Pakenham Street Precinct Structure Plan.
Yeah, look, it's been through a fairly lengthy and arduous process. Rightly so. It's an area that's beloved by many, and particularly those who live there at the moment. And the urban design framework is looking at changing the kind of development that we see in that area at the moment. So, anywhere between 4 stories right up to 10 stories when you get up to the Church Street end of Pakenham Street, which is obviously a massive change for that area. But, as planners, again, as we're looking forward 20, 30 years, we're trying to predict what we need in terms of housing supply. And I think one of the things that we need in Geelong is a diversity of product. And we always hear this discussion about diversity of product and what does that mean? And I think, what you will have seen, Gareth, in many recent years is the increased median house price in suburbs of Geelong.
And that's exactly why we need more affordable accommodation, whether that's in units or what it happens to be. And I'm very much in favour of more infill high development to sustain that, because with the taxes on development and landfill, and like the windfall tax we talked about and stuff like that, you're not going to be able to get anything under 500,000 to buy into Geelong, even in the estates. So we need high density to provide for that affordable housing market. You can buy a unit, a 2-bedroom unit for around the 500,000 mark, but you're talking 800,000 to buy a house, right? So the difference is quite marginal. The other thing I want to that talks about with value is a lot of people follow these precinct structure plans and urban framework design plans and stuff with value. So value follows what you guys do.
Correct.
So I follow you around everywhere. But basically, I'm that guy. Yeah. But there's on Pakenham Street, there was a sale just recently of basically this land at 4,500 a square metre, Mike, which huge price really. When Pakenham Street land prior to that urban framework was probably only about 1,200 or 1,500 bucks a square metre. So huge jumps in values when these urban framework plans come through, don't they?
There are. And I think, to take your point, I live in Armstrong Creek. I'm practicing what I preach and living in the growth corridor. And I think that we can't assume that everyone's going to want to live in these new master plan communities, as great as they are. And it's central to what TRACT as a firm do. We're big in that new community space, but we can't assume that everyone wants to live in those new communities at the peripheral of Geelong. We need to provide the product for people to live close to jobs, close to services, and close to the amenities and places they want to live. So,
and what does the Gordon Avenue one look like? Is that different again?
It's quite similar. It's part of the Packington Street urban design framework. Sort of wraps down and around.
Seen our first approval
Yes.
in there, which is a 2-tower hotel and
Correct. Yep.
all hotel. But
I think there was a little bit of office space in that one as well. So
it was a plinth, I think, with retail and then office.
So I think that came in around the 9-story mark in the end. I think it started out around 13 stories, so got down to 9. Which when you think about that Spring Street area to the south, it's quite a drastic change. But when we look at the types of amenity that Gordon Avenue has, it's a big wide street. It's got those historic industrial commercial uses. It's the right location for these kinds of developments. So
and you look back the history of that. Gordon Avenue used to be a creek.
Yeah, absolutely.
It used to be a creek. That used to be where the water ran down.
Correct. Linked up to Johnston Park.
Looked up to Johnston Park. Yeah. So it's amazing how these transformed, just the landscapes completely transformed from what things were.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the other one that I love, one of my favourite spots in town is Highton Village. Right, and Highton Village, just such a beautiful little spot that's been able to maintain boutique shopping, to maintain that little local village type feel to it.
Yep.
But what are you doing to it?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I, like you, love it the way it is.
Yeah, I don't want you to see it change it. I don't want 4-story development down in my little Highton Village, mate.
It's a beautiful little spot, and I used to live there when I first moved to Geelong. I rented a place on Barrable Road, and that was my little shopping centre, and it's great the way it is. It's got those beautiful trees, it's got the central median, the roads are separated, it works well the way it is. But again, it's thinking about what are we needing to do in terms of getting people living in these locations. So again, we talk about diversity of product, and it's trying to improve on, I guess, some of the challenges in that location. For example, we've all encountered that little dinky roundabout near Taylor Court there, which is a bit tricky, and I think there's been a few prangs there over time.
Well, it's the only roundabout that's not a roundabout.
Correct, that's exactly right. It's a bit of a funny one, but it's got its challenges, Highton, and I think those frameworks have the opportunity to try and correct some of those. Also, it gives the framework for things like the big car park over near Roslyn Road, and also the Woolies site with the car park. It builds a framework for those to actually be developed. And we don't want to see seas of car parking on the street. What we want to see is active edges, active
certainly
frontages.
We don't want to see car parking in Highton, but we certainly do want to see car parking in Geelong CBD and for free if possible.
Well, we want to know that car parking is there. Whether we see it or not, that's a debate, but we definitely need to know that it's there. We need to know how to get to it, and we need to manage it properly. Now, whether it's free or not, that's a debate for others, but it needs to be there, and we need to think about managing it.
Just tell me a little bit about your work on the Geelong Property Council chapter.
Yeah, well, it's pretty new. It's fresh. This is the inaugural Geelong chapter for the PCA, and I'm on there with 18 other committed people who live and work in Geelong.
Are they all on the committee? So there's 18 people on the committee?
Yep, big bunch. Many hands make light work,
yep.
as they say, Gareth. So we've recently formed a series of subcommittees which are looking at CBD, urban infill, growth areas, a lot of the sectors that we've just spoken about, because we recognise that they're really important aspects of the way we grow and growing sustainably. So we're currently setting the policy agenda for those subcommittees and feeding that back into the PCA.
Quite a good dynamic group in that Property Council. I'm really proud of what Geelong has put up for that chapter, because you've got Sam Ramsey's on it, you've got Nate is on it, you're on it. There's a really good spread of people, at the right age group who have got plenty of years in front of them to see a lot of these projects through. It's pretty good.
Look, I think as much as anything, most, if not all, are local living, at least working locally in Geelong. So we're invested in what the outcomes of these communities. So,
and you put on a great lunch too.
We do, absolutely. So, no, credit to the PCA for recognising the opportunity to set up the Geelong chapter. Other industry bodies have had chapters down here for some time, and it was about time the PCA came and joined the conversation.
Simon, we've been given the Tinkerbell wind-up over there, but you and I could talk all day. Maybe we'll continue this glass of wine and do that. But thank you very much for coming on board.
No, thank
you very much for being such a great resource.
Thanks,
for us.
My pleasure. We're only a phone call away if people need some help. The planning,
so thank you.
The planning space can be a little bit daunting and confusing for some, not necessarily you guys, but certainly we're always there to help. So thank you.
Anyway, thanks for coming on, Prop. and you're watching Prop by the Bar, and just want to thank Simon Loader again for coming in. Man about town, knows the ins and outs.
Knows everything. And mate, every time I have an issue with a planning scheme or something like that with work, I'm on the phone to Simon real quick smart to get the ins and outs of it. So
he's always on the other end of the phone, which is a great help. So, but lots of exciting things to happen in Geelong, which is great. So, talking about exciting properties, why don't we get straight into Property of the Week?
And I'm pretty excited about this one. I think this one came up for a listing just before Christmas in somewhere in December. And I think a lot of people in the property market went, wow, what an awesome house. It is awesome. Ranoch House, it's called, and it's located just in behind Lutheran College in Newtown. It's near the corner of Aberdeen Street and Paco and Skeen, so it's in that little block there. It's amazing that it's just tucked in. It's such a hidden gem. But it was constructed of Barrel of Bluestone back in 1851. Shortly after construction, it served as a royal museum for a period of time. And then later on, it became Lisdoo House in 1855, which was a school for young ladies. And it used to be run by a Mrs. Greer. She sounds interesting, doesn't she, Mrs. Greer? The eastern wing was added in 1863, at which time a lot of Renaissance revival was added to the facade. Major local benefactor that you'll know, Mike, Alexander Miller, who built lots of this sort of period homes around Geelong, big philanthropic sort of stuff. So he built the Alexander Miller homes where they housed destitute women and that sort of stuff. There was one in Myers Street, another one in Ryrie Street. So obviously this guy back at the time contributed a lot to the Geelong. So he owned it for a period of time until about 1906. And then it was, obviously been in private ownership ever since. The property is beautiful. It's got balustrades and parapets. Its internal features are amazing. You've got timber stairwells, plantation shutters, billiards rooms, conservatories, dining rooms, kitchens with butlers' pantries. You've got this magnificent dining room. You've got cellars. You've got in-ground pool, gardens, bluestone wall features, 8 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. It's nothing short of probably one of the best properties to have hit the market in the last few years, if not one of the best homes in Geelong, full stop. And it's just such a surprise to find such a little gem like that. And imagine it back in the day, if that Lutheran College wasn't there, I still think we should bulldoze it, because it's covering up the front of this magnificent building. Yep. And this would have had that view straight down the hill from there. It would have been amazing. And then someone's gone and built the damn school in front of it. Not that they don't love the Lutherans. But magnificent property, and has to be property of the week, the month, the Christmas period, whatever we want to call it. Yeah. Fantastic property. Good luck, Dale Whitford. Whitford Properties that was selling it. It's got a big price tag on it.
Price expectations?
Well, I think they're quoting somewhere between 11 and 12 million. And if it does sell at that sort of level, it'll be one of the highest sale properties in the whole region. So
it would have to be Geelong record, wouldn't it?
I think it would be a Geelong record. Yeah, definitely for sure, Geelong record. That wouldn't include Surf Coast and Torquay and those sort of areas, but definitely be Geelong record.
Well, it's in good hands with Dale at Whitford Properties, so we look forward to seeing the result on that one, and a big salt sticker on the board, I'm sure. Yeah,
if you're a property lover, get online and just have a look at this property. It's to die for.
Well, that's all the time we've got for this month's episode. Next month, we've got another great guest coming on.
Yeah, actually, the Honourable Ryan Smith, the Opposition Shadow Planning Minister. And I think it'd be really interesting to see what his opinion is on a lot of the stuff that Simon's talked about today and all the planning stuff we've just gone through today. Yeah. It's right down his alley. So, we're well ready for him.
I can't wait for that conversation. But anyway, thanks for joining us again on Propped. Again, thanks to Johnny Helmer for hosting us here, Chris behind the camera, the Oracle, Johnny Fitzgerald, the producer, as always. Thanks, Gareth. And if you want to hear it from us...
Thank you, Mike.
Don't forget to hit subscribe. Otherwise, we'll see you next month. Cheers.